everyone to another Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video, wherever you are, whatever you may be doing. Thank you so much for making Ref Brandon and the Todd Family a part of your day. We always greatly appreciate it. Hopefully everybody had a wonderful Monday, and I hope your week is off to a fantastic start, whether you consider the week starting on a Sunday or a Monday. Hope your weekend is off to a good start. Nevertheless, if you jump on here live here on this Monday evening, feel free to leave a comment in the comment section down below. Make sure to give the video a like, a thumbs up. If you have not yet subscribed, please do so and share the video on all social media platforms. I mentioned a couple of weeks ago that I was going to try to get to somewhere between 20 and 25 early season previews before the season starts. Well, I haven't written down any teams that I've done in the past 3 weeks. I wrote some down today, but I went totally by memorization, so I may have forgotten one or two, but if not, I'm at around 17 or 18, whether or not you count the NFL schedule that I covered. So I'm definitely going to get to 20, maybe 25, but I'm going to do another one tonight. And the reason why I picked this team is because earlier today I was watching some college football preseason preview stuff, and there are 4 teams that are tied that are all picked to win the Big 12. So you've got a 4-team tie at the top, so really no team is favored. So if you pick any of those 4 teams, you're picking the winner of the Big 12. They've got Kansas State, Texas Tech, Arizona State, and Utah as the preseason favorites. I didn't see what any of them's projected record is. I just know that if you pick any of those 4 teams, then you're picking the tie atop the Big 12 race. So it got me to thinking, I've already covered Texas Tech. I covered them 3 or 4 weeks ago, and I said I think they win the Big 12. But I have not done any of the other teams, so I thought, why not do one? So tonight we're going to do Kansas State. Hey there, James. Glad to have you here. Now, of course, their head coach, hey there, Quit, and please do come back. Their head coach, of course, is Chris Kleiman, who's from North Dakota State, and Matt Wells is their offensive coordinator. Hey there, Jolene. Glad to have you here. Hey there, Beatrice. Glad to have you here. So Matt Wells is their offensive coordinator, and Joe Klanderman is in his 6th year as their defensive coordinator. And of course, Avery Johnson, not the former basketball coach and basketball player, but a different Avery Johnson is back as their starting quarterback. Hey there, Davey. Glad to have you here. Hopefully all of you have clicked the subscribe button and click on that like button. Tell your friends, tell your family about the channel. But the Avery Johnson thing is confusing because, you know, they ran off Will Howard because they thought that Avery Johnson was a better quarterback and gave them a better chance to win than Will Howard. And last year, I just didn't see it. But the more confusing part is all the media and all the players and all the coaching staff say that Avery Johnson's best skill is his legs. He's going to do the most damage and gives you the biggest threat with his legs. Good evening, Keveron. Glad to have you here on this Monday evening, but yet here we are a week and a half away from their first game of the season since they're playing on week 0. And the coaching staff for Kansas State saying that they don't want Avery Johnson to run. So if he's your quarterback and you want him to give his team the best chance to win, and the best chance for him to let you win is by running the ball, and he's not going to run the ball, that makes 0 sense. We're talking about Kansas State, who's always been known as one of the teams that, even this day and time, when most teams pass the ball all over the field, they still rely on the run. Bill Snyder built that program running the ball. And now, so far up to this year, Chris Kleiman has ran the ball. And now all of a sudden they're saying, well, we're going to run the ball, just not with our quarterback, even though his best asset is his legs. Hey there, Eddie. Glad to have you here. Hey there, Mike. Glad to have you here. So, kind of makes no sense. Is he just saying that to try to throw the other teams off? Because if so, that's not going to work. Or is he saying that trying to prove that he can make Avery Johnson a good passer since everybody says he can't throw? Or is he doing this to try to set him up for the future? And I say that because if you recall, when Lamar Jackson was at Louisville, his first couple of years, he ran the ball all the time. Well, come his last year, all of a sudden he starts throwing the ball, and rumor was that Petrino made that decision when he was the head coach at Louisville because Petrino wanted Lamar Jackson to go to the NFL. But he knew that Lamar Jackson was not going to go to the NFL running the ball 30 times a game and throwing the ball 15 times a game. So he developed Lamar Jackson into a passer so that he had a better chance of going to the NFL. But 95% of college coaches don't give a darn about your NFL career because that doesn't help them. They want to win, and they're going to make you do whatever you can do to win. So it kind of doesn't make sense for their head coach to come out and say, well, Avery's not going to run when his best asset is to run the ball. Maybe they're scared he gets hurt and they have no confidence in the backup quarterback. I don't know, but you can't play scared either. But nevertheless, let's look at their schedule. Now, most teams get 2 bye weeks. Kansas State actually gets 3 since they play in week 0 next Saturday against Iowa State. Of course, that game is over in Dublin, Ireland. That'll be the noon game next Saturday, August the 23rd, a week from this Saturday. Then week 2, which is week 1, but week 2 for them, they play North Dakota on August 30th. And then we'll make it easier and not so confusing by saying game number 3 on September the 6th, they play Army. And then they come back on a Friday night and they play Arizona on September the 12th. And then they have their first of 5 bye weeks after game number 4. Then they come back in game number 5. They play Central Florida on September 27th. Then they open up the month of October on the 4th against Baylor. Then they play TCU on October the 11th. And then they have their second bye week of the season. By the way, Eddie, maybe I'm wrong, but I think you're an Alabama fan. I bring that up because one day last week, I couldn't tell you what day it was, but one day last week I did a Alabama early season preview, and in that video I said, hopefully my man Eddie sees this video because I think he is a Alabama fan. So if you are, Eddie, please go back and watch that video. Tell me what you think because it was one day last week, and I don't recall you commenting in the comment section on the day I did that video, but it was one day last week. I used to always title my videos. I've stopped doing that because to me it saves time. You should watch it no matter what it's about. But it was one day last week, Monday, Tuesday maybe. I'm not sure I did. I think 3 early season previews last week, but one of them was Alabama. After TCU, the second bye week of the season, then we come back and play Kansas on October 25th, and then Texas Tech on November 1st, and then they have their third bye week of the season. Then they play Oklahoma State on November 15th, Utah on November 22nd, and Colorado on November 29th. So Kansas State will get 3 bye weeks. Now, Dylan Edwards is their primary running back. Now, they have 5 or 6 other backs that'll get the ball, but Dylan Edwards is going to be their primary running back, especially if Avery Johnson indeed really truly does not run the ball. Dylan Edwards might get 20-plus carries a game. But I believe they open up with Iowa State. This game's hard to pick though because Iowa State, they're a hard team to really predict because a couple of years ago when they had Brock Purdy at quarterback and they had, I want to say his name was Bylel, I think, at running back. They were picked to win 9 or 10 games that year, and they went 6-6, and then they lost all those offensive weapons, and then they came back the next year, and they were really good. But they were supposed to be really good last year, and they weren't. But then all the great talent they had, they lost. So it kind of makes you think they're going to be really good again this year. Their quarterback is back for his 17th year, but I'm just not sure about the weapons around him. And of course, this game being in Dublin, even though somebody's going to be the designed home team, it really is a neutral site for both teams. I'm not sure how many fans are going to be there. Honestly, I guess we'll find out coming up in a week and a half. But since it's first game of the season, I'll give Kansas State the edge in that game. Not by much, though. And then I think they beat North Dakota on the 30th. But I've got them losing to Army on September 6th. Now, of course, this is a non-conference game, so if they lose that game, it doesn't matter. It's non-conference. But, Army runs that triple option, and they were a double-digit win team last year, and they brought back most of their weapons. And if Kansas State really does start the season out and they take the running game away from Avery Johnson, they're going to struggle to score, and I just don't think they're going to score 21 and beat Army. I just don't see it. So maybe if they do lose that game, they'll realize, okay, if we're going to have a explosive offense, we're going to have to let Avery Johnson run the ball. But the good news is for them, that's a non-conference game, but I think Army beats them. Then I think they beat Arizona heading into their first bye week of the season. They come off their first bye week. They beat Central Florida, but I think Baylor beats them. And then I think they beat TCU. Now, so far, I've got them with 2 losses, the one non-conference loss to Army, and then the conference loss to Baylor. And, if this holds true, and it's, mid-October, and they've got 2 losses, they'll go back to let Avery Johnson run the ball. But now, if all this is just made up and Avery Johnson is going to run the ball, they'll beat Army. I'm not sure about Baylor. Baylor has an explosive offense with an amazing quarterback. And Kansas State, they're the kind of offense that, they're consistent. They don't turn the ball over enough. They have long 6, 7, 8 minute drives because they run the ball so much. But they're probably going to score 28 to 31 points a game. That's good enough to beat Army. I'm not sure about Baylor. And then after they beat TCU's their second bye week of the season, they come off of that and they beat Kansas. They lose to Texas Tech. I did my Texas Tech season preview, and I picked Texas Tech to beat Kansas State. So I'm going to stick with it. I've got Texas Tech winning the Big 12. I'm going to stick with it. So Texas Tech beats them, and then they have their third bye week of the season. Then they beat Oklahoma State. I think Utah beats them. I think Utah's going to be a much improved team this year. So I think Utah beats them. And then they wrap up the regular season Thanksgiving weekend on the 29th of November by beating Colorado. So non-conference loss to Army, conference losses to Baylor, Texas Tech, and Utah. So I've got them at 6-3 in the Big 12, 8-4 overall. I really think their best case scenario is 10-2, and I think the worst case scenario is 7-5. So I'm kind of in the middle with 8-4. But as I said, I think Texas Tech's better than they are, and I think Utah is better than they are. Those are 2 games that I think they're going to lose. But if they do let Avery run the ball, they can beat Army. That puts them at 9-3. And then the Baylor game is kind of either way. But if you don't let your best player do what he does best, you're not beating Baylor. But I don't care what Avery Johnson does. I don't think they're beating Texas Tech, and I don't see them beating Utah. That's why I say they're best case scenario is 10-2. I think the worst case is 7-5. So I'll kind of go in the middle and go 8-4. But that's for the most part about what Kansas State does. I mean, on occasion they'll have a 10-win season, and on occasion they'll have a 5 or 6 win season. But if you look at their, you know, trajectory, except for the few years Ron Prince was the coach, just about the whole time Bill Snyder was their coach, they were an 8 or 9 win team. And now since Kleiman took over, they've been a 8 or 9 win team. So that's about what I expect this year. But like I said, I figured I'd do them because I saw that there was a 4-way tie atop the Big 12, and I thought, well, I've already did my Texas Tech preview, so let's do some of the other teams that's picked atop the Big 12. So I've got Kansas State 6-3 in the Big 12, 8-4 overall. If that happens, they're definitely not winning the Big 12. I wouldn't have them tied. Me personally, I would have Texas Tech the favorite, and I would have Arizona State second. I would have Utah third, Baylor fourth, and Kansas State fifth would be my projected top 5 finish for the Big 12. Arizona State won it last year. They're going to be really good again this year. I just think Texas Tech is a tad bit better. And Utah was bad last year, but Utah is never bad 2 years in a row. And, you know, we know they've always got a good defense. But last year the problem was they just couldn't score. And I don't think they're going to have a phenomenal offense this year. But if it can just be marginally better, they'll win 3 or 4 more games. So my projected Big 12 finish would be Texas Tech, Utah, Arizona State, Baylor, and Kansas State. Any thoughts on any of this, please feel free to let me know. Let's go ahead and get our dad joke of the day in here. Viagra shipment stolen. Cops are looking for hardened criminals. And that does it for today's Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video. Until next time, it's Ref Brandon saying, just like in pro wrestling, life can be over by the count of 3. Tell your friends and family how much you love them. Bye.